Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new reading vlog. Recently, I was reading a lot on my Kindle and I realized just how many random horror books I have on there because I find it very difficult to pass up the opportunity to get a book for free. So I have horror books, random indie horror books that I've gotten through Stuff Your Kindle days, where a lot of indie authors will put their things up for sale for $0. And again, I can't pass up a free horror book, so I have a couple of those. I also have had this happen once or twice where I read an indie ebook and then at the end of the book it takes you to the publisher's website and they're like, thanks for finishing a book, click here to redeem a free ebook. And I'm like, well, you know, if you're giving me a free book, how am I gonna say no? So I think I have one or two that I got that way. I also have some Kindle Unlimited books that I checked out a long time ago and intended to read and then never did. So I don't have a fully set TBR for the Kindle just yet, but I do want to get through some of those indie books on my Kindle. But I also realized I have two books on my physical TBR that could work for this. One of my main goals this year is to read down my physical TBR, and I am a little bit intimidated by both of these because one of them has been on my TBR for so long. The other one was recent, but they're both books that I've never really heard anybody talk about, and so I don't know what to expect, and I'm just a little bit nervous. I don't know. The first one is Bad Ronald by Jack Vance. Can we take a moment for the cover? Because that's why I bought this. I found this at a thrift store when I lived in Colorado, so that was quite some time ago. The cover is what got me, because I was like, what the fuck is that? I need to know. I will read the synopsis to you because that is what sold it and what pushed me to purchase this book. 17-year-old Ronald Wilby is an introverted young man with a protective single mother. Walking home one evening, Ronald stumbles into young Carol Matthews. In the encounter, Carol ends up assaulted and dead. Ronald leaves his jacket at the scene. Elaine Wilby is convinced that Carol's death was an accident and converts a small part of the old house to a secret room where Ronald must hide, until she saves enough that they can move and start over. She tells everyone that her son ran away. The plan works until Mrs. Wilby is taken by sudden illness. The house is sold to another family, a family with 3 pretty daughters. Lurking behind the walls, Ronald is tempted more than he can bear. So that synopsis sounds so interesting, paired with this weird picture. I don't know what is going on here. It also sounds like it could get quite dark and disturbing, and that is exactly what I want. Then the other one that I have actually kind of has a funny story about it. If you saw my Christmas book haul, my New Year book haul, whatever that was, the last book haul I did because I never do them, I got this book, Dead Girl Blues by Lawrence Block, and I'll tell you how this happened. I have an Amazon book wish list, and I mostly use that for me personally to keep track of what books I want to buy and the priority of those books. And then it's also just easy if I have friends or family that want to get me a gift for my birthday or for Christmas to just send them the list, and I can just say I don't really care what it is, but just get me something off of here and I'll be happy. So my boyfriend gets that list every year for my birthday and for Christmas, and I did tell him to buy used because I prefer buying used books anyways. I don't like buying books off of Amazon. And on that list is a book called Dead Girl Blues, but it is by David Sodergren. So what happened is my boyfriend was looking at that list and then he went to a used book website, typed in the title, didn't double check the author, and bought this. And can I tell you how scary that was Christmas morning when I opened this and I was like, what the fuck is that? Because what do you mean that was on my wish list and I don't know what it is? I was like, I really need to be careful about what I'm putting on that list and make sure it's something I really want because I don't know what this is. And then we figured out what happened. So now I just have this book that I would like to read. I think this is another dark and disturbing one that also might deal with assault and murder, so we'll see how that goes. So these two from my physical TBR I will definitely be reading in this video, and then I'll just kind of be mood reading and picking whatever I want from the Kindle as we go. So the goal of this obviously is to read some indie horror, some underrated books, and hopefully be able to recommend them to you at the end of the day so that you guys can go and check these authors out. So I decided to start off with a Kindle book. I decided to read Shockwaves by Matt Kurtz. This I've had saved on my Kindle Unlimited list, and I think borrowed from Kindle Unlimited for years, and it's been one that like I've wanted to read really, really badly, but I just never did. I'm going to put this down and put like the picture of the cover up, because the cover is like the big thing that intrigued me. Like, you can see it looks like there's like a giant spider in the background, and there's like some sort of amusement park vibe going on, and it just looks really, really intriguing. It's a pretty short book. I think, like I said, I'm about halfway through. I lied. I'm actually 62% of the way through on page 96 out of 153. So a nice little novella, and I'm really, really enjoying it so far. I feel like it is a really good like summertime read. I know we're kind of getting towards the end of summer now, but I would recommend this as a summer read. Okay, so the camera died in the middle of me explaining what this book is about, so we're just gonna take it from the top. The main character that we're following is a 17-year-old named Danny, and he is working at an amusement park. His girlfriend Stacy also works there, and they've been in a relationship for about 2 years, and they are kind of planning their future together. But Danny is working specifically on one roller coaster, and they have been getting complaints from guests that it's, I don't know, not acting right. So he decides to get on it to take a ride through and then see what people are complaining about, and then decide from there whether or not to call in the mechanic for the ride. And as they are going up this roller coaster, like right as they're about to detach from the track and go down the hill, the power gets shut off in the entire park because there is an explosion at a nearby construction site, and basically the ground opens up and giant bugs start coming out. It is described as a rolling army of insectoid, reptilian, and arachnid invaders. So yeah, there's spiders, lizards, scorpions, ants, like think of any bug or reptile, and then make it like 10 times larger, and that's what's coming out of the earth and is eating people. There's like bats as well, there's flying insects, and Danny and of course a bunch of other park guests are stuck at the top of the hill on this roller coaster, and some of them start to get picked off one by one by these like flying creatures. And so now he is kind of in a fight for survival. He is trying to help some of the other guests as he can, but he's also trying to get to his girlfriend Stacy, who is working on a neighboring ride. So they are walking in this park in the dark. A lot of people are frantic. There's giant bugs everywhere. They have no power. It also takes place in 1988, so they don't have cell phones. They can't just like text each other, call up the police or anything. Like, their phone lines are completely down. They can't really get a hold of anybody, and it has been very, very fast paced so far. I feel like it's not anything extraordinary. I think it is definitely like what you would expect from this type of story, like a really quick creature feature. Everything's moving very fast. People are getting picked off and killed left and right. But it's just been a really, really fun read. Again, I feel like it would be the perfect summer vibe. I don't know why. I guess just because it's like kind of that amusement park setting. It's not really giving big summer vibes, but that is what makes me think of that. It's just been really, really fun. And I'm also like, bug horror is not something that I read a lot, and so I'm really, really enjoying some of the descriptions in here. There has been some really, really good death scenes, and overall I am enjoying the writing. Even if like the characters are a little bit cliche, like I said, they kind of fit into the molds that you would expect with this type of story, I'm still really, really enjoying it. There was this one line, because the bugs come out of the earth and they have to cross the highway to get to the amusement park, and they're basically just like eating everything in their path. So as they're crossing the highway, it says, gigantic pinchers, incisors, and claws became industrial can openers, tearing into vehicles to reach their warm, juicy, screaming contents. And I just really like the visual that paints of like tearing into like these vehicles to eat the people inside. I don't know, it's just been really, really fun. I would definitely like recommend this if you want like a buggy, insecty horror. If you're freaked out by bugs, I feel like this would definitely freak you out. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. It says I have 45 minutes left in the book where I'm at now, and I feel like this will most likely be like a pretty solid, maybe 4-star by the end. I think this is definitely one that I'm going to be able to recommend. So let me go finish that and I will let you guys know my final thoughts. So we were with some friends over the weekend at a cabin. So I did finish Shockwaves before we left. I just haven't had the chance to actually do an update. So this one, I think I'm landing on 3.5 stars. I feel like it's not anything groundbreaking, like I've said, but it is definitely exactly what you expect it to be. I think if you like those like silly kind of B horror movie creature feature like Sharknado, Dino Croc, like all of those weird animal monster movies, this is exactly that same thing. Where like everything's very, very fast paced, people are dying left and right. You don't really care too much for the characters because you know like who's gonna die right away. You kind of know exactly where the storyline is going, but you just want that like silliness of the creature and the fun kind of slasher feeling to it. That is exactly what this novella is. It was really entertaining the whole way through, even though like I said, I kind of knew exactly how things were gonna wrap up and who was gonna die and who was gonna live. I still had a fun time reading this. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. I would recommend this. I think especially with like Halloween time coming up, I feel like a lot of people are going to be looking for some more fun and fast-paced horror, and I think this would be a good contender. I also did end up starting the second book while we were gone, which is this one. I will put it on the screen because I think this cover is so pretty. I do have to be honest, I have to look up how to pronounce this title, but the illustration is done by Ambi Sun, according to the cover page on here, but I think the illustration is gorgeous. I do think this is a really pretty cover. I only read the first chapter, which kind of just gave us the introduction to the story. This is another novella, and we are introduced to, I think, 4 characters in this first chapter, and we just kind of get like the background, a little bit of background on them, and then also like what they're doing. So the characters are a part of this like larger group, I think, that are referred to as the Curse Breakers, and these 4 are together because they are on a job together. They are going to the catacombs in Paris, and I'm just gonna read from the book itself because it does a better job explaining like what the premise is than I could do, I feel like. So they are tasked with handling the magical overflow leaching into the surrounding area. The storm, so there was a storm, I guess, that hit the catacombs, and it says resulted in some flooding that knocked a few old spells loose. Our goal is to get to the afflicted areas, repair what needs to be repaired, and diffuse any malignant spells that have morphed into curses due to neglect and damage. So that's basically their job. They're kind of like all witches or have some sort of like magical quality, and they are going in to, you know, make sure there's no curses in the catacombs. So I think this is definitely like a fantasy horror book, and I am intrigued with the premise, and I'm very, very excited to see. I'm sure it's gonna pick up now because like that first chapter was just, here are the characters, here's what's happening, now we're gonna get into the action. So I'm curious to see where it goes from here.
Ossuary.
Why does that sound like grainy? Like he recorded this in the back rooms.
Ossuary.
Ossuary. Anyways, I finished that book. I don't know where my Kindle is. Actually, I don't think I brought it in here with me. Anyways, I did finish Ossuary. I think I'm going to land on 3 stars. I sadly don't really have a lot to say. I do think that it was interesting and kind of like an original concept, but I just feel like I wasn't fully pulled into the story for majority of it. I think towards the end things got a little bit more fun and exciting, but it really kicks off, like I gave you the basic setup. These 4 witches are there as curse breakers, and they have to like correct any spells or curses that might have come out, and they're using their magic to like seal the spells back up so that there's no curses that escape. And they all have a very complicated dynamic with one another. One of them is new, like I think this is her first job. She's a lot younger than everybody else. Then we have like the head witch that is kind of like the manager, like leading this group. Then we have our main character. I'm not gonna say any of their names because it's like that type of fantasy where like I don't know how to pronounce any of their names. Our main character has a reputation that precedes him because the family name has been associated with dark stuff for hundreds of years, and maybe we're on the wrong side of history at some point down the line. So he has had to work really, really hard to get taken seriously, to get recognition, and even then he is still like talked down upon. People act like they're scared of him because of his family name. And then the other person in the group is like the enemy type of character to the main character that we're following. And at first I was like picking up on their like dynamic, and I was like, oh, maybe we're gonna have like a little enemies to lovers moment, and that was kind of what motivated me in the beginning to keep reading. And then I realized like that no, that character was just the villain. They were just an asshole. There was no romance or chemistry there, but I was kind of hoping it would go in that direction at first, but it didn't. But things really kick off when something goes wrong as they're using their magic to try to like fix this curse or this spell, and there's like kind of a shifting within the catacombs, and so it becomes a much more dangerous situation because they don't know what tunnels or walls have shifted there, and they don't know like at any point if the catacombs are just gonna collapse on top of them. So there's a lot of arguing, a lot of tension within this group of people, but ultimately they decide not to turn back. They decide to continue on with their job because there is too much at stake. Like they would be in a lot of trouble and get reprimanded if they were to turn back and not complete the job. So they end up going through with it, and then we find out that there is a creature that has been unleashed from one of these curses in the catacombs, and that is now what is targeting them. So since it's not included in the synopsis, and it is I think like halfway through the book before we get the reveal of what this creature is, I do think it would be a spoiler. So if you don't want to know, you can skip ahead like maybe 30 seconds. But at the same time, I feel like knowing what the creature is might entice people to read the book and pique your interest a little bit more. So if you want to know, the creature is a vampire, an ancient vampire that has been sealed in the catacombs and was kept in place until this spell is removed, and then it comes out, and it does get like a little bit sexual in nature at some points. And I really liked ultimately like where it went in the end of the story with that creature and with the main character that we are following and what he decides to do once he learns more about this creature. Overall, I really liked the idea of this story. I just don't know if it was perfectly for me. It felt a little bit more fantasy than horror, and I definitely like horror a little bit more than fantasy, although I have been dabbling there. I also felt like at times it was a little bit difficult for me to picture like exactly the surroundings and certain things that were happening, like when there's like combat or like fighting, trying to picture like what's actually happening with the action scenes was a little difficult for me. But I feel like that could have just been me personally because I was kind of tired as I was reading this, so maybe I just like was not fully picking up on what exactly was happening. I enjoyed the writing overall. There was a lot that I highlighted on my Kindle, and I think if you are interested in the synopsis, this is definitely one to check out. It is on Kindle Unlimited, and I don't even remember how I got it because I wasn't reading it through Kindle Unlimited. I think maybe it was like one of those stuff your Kindle days and it was like on sale for $0, and maybe I just bought it at that point. Actually, I didn't realize that I can check, and that's exactly what happened. It was in December. It was on sale December 28th, 2024. I purchased this book for $0.00. and now I'm just now reading it. But if you are interested, again, it is on Kindle Unlimited, and I would say overall it's a recommend. Moving on from that one, I wanted to switch over to one of the physical TBR books, so I did end up starting Bad Ronald. I can't. Every time I look at this cover, I'm like, what in the world? Anyways, I started this on break at work. I didn't get very far. I got to chapter 3, which is 16 pages in, and it's been reading very quickly, and I think like kicked off very, very strongly. We get introduced to Ronald, his mother telling us about who Ronald is, and it is his 17th birthday, and he really is pining after this girl at his school. She does not reciprocate those feelings, and in kind of a moment of anger, he takes it out on another young girl. It does involve an assault. It's not on page described in great detail, but like it's very sad and very clear like what is happening. So definitely be aware of that, but again, this is one that I expect to be disturbing. I actually really like the writing so far, and I am really excited to continue this and see where it goes. I feel like right now his mother is definitely giving off like the coddling vibes, kind of the whole vibe of like, my Ronald would never do anything bad. I feel like because his father's not in the picture, I think some of like the blame for like him acting out might be put onto that, as far as like who the mother decides to blame it on. I don't know where it's gonna go with that mother-son relationship further into the book, but I am excited to get back to reading this. I don't know if I will be reading any more tonight though. My boyfriend is going on a short little trip and he leaves in the morning, so we're gonna, you know, hang out tonight, spend some time together, right? But if I do end up reading more, obviously I will come back and update you guys. One of my favorite things when I go on Reddit and you see somebody post something and then in the background of their photo it's just like some weird random stuff happening, and I love scrolling to the comments and the top comment is this image. So let me address the elephant. I do have a little scratch. Maybe it's not that obvious like on the camera, but it's pretty obvious to me. Last night I was putting chips back in the pantry cupboard and I don't know what happened because I was doing something on the side and I think I turned maybe at the same time that I was opening the door, or I was just standing too close and it scraped the top of my head, like the corner of the door, and now I have a little scratch there. Anyways, I took my boyfriend to the airport this morning and then came home, did a little bit of reading, took a nap because we had to wake up pretty early, and now I am ready to tell you about my book again. I have gotten to page 62, which is chapter 11. It was in Roman numerals and I wasn't expecting that. I don't really know why, but I'm like actually really enjoying this book. Like I'm really invested in the story. It's kind of giving me like V.C. Andrews, similar to Flowers in the Attic vibe. Maybe because of the fact like he's hiding in the house just like they're hiding in Flowers in the Attic, but also the way that it's written, and I feel like the over dramaticness of some of the characters is like funny and entertaining, and I'm just curious to see where it goes. Ronald is such a whiny little bitch and I can't stand him. So he kills this young girl right at the beginning, and he comes home and he tells his mom, and she's like, well, I can't have you going to jail for that. And they come up with a plan to, they have like a bathroom under the stairs, and they basically like build that out. Like they remove the door and like plaster over the wall, and they have like a tiny little secret door for Ronald to enter and exit through, and then she can also feed him, but she's like, you can't come out because like people are gonna know if you're in the house, like they have nosy neighbors that are gonna notice. So he's just like living in this bathroom under the stairs, and she's like feeding him and all this stuff. And what they're trying to do is to wait long enough, like 6 months to a year, where there's been enough time with the case that maybe they're not really looking for Ronald anymore, because she basically tells the cops that like she doesn't know what happened, and she kind of staged it to look like he took his cash and he ran off. And this is, I mean, the book was written in the 70s, so maybe it takes place in the 70s, where I feel like, you know, back then it was a lot easier to just like leave without a trace. And so she has given them the impression that he's run away, he committed this horrible crime and ran away, and that's it. So she's trying to save up some money now to get him and get herself and Ronald moved to Florida, where they can restart their life. And she has this grand idea that he's gonna study and like keep up with his schoolwork, his education, I guess, while he's hiding in this bathroom under the stairs. And then when they move, like, he's gonna go to college and get this great job and like provide for her, and he's gonna be like really rich one day. But anyways, she really like cuts back on like groceries and bills and like cancels their health insurance and like all of this stuff to save that money so they can leave sooner. And fucking Ronald is like, Mom, you didn't buy me Jello. Oh, where's my chocolate milk? You want me to drink this dehydrated milk? And she's like, listen, it's cheaper. And he's like, oh, but it's not my fault. It literally is your fault. Like, you killed a woman. Your mother doesn't have to be doing any of this. She shouldn't be doing any of this. But she is. And you have the audacity to complain that she only gave you one scoop of ice cream for dessert? I can't. Anyways, I think things are really going to ramp up now because, I mean, it says all of this in the synopsis, which I did read at the beginning, but his mother has gallbladder stones and she gets surgery to have the gallbladder removed, but I guess there is some sort of complication that was missed and she ends up dying unexpectedly, and Ronald is still like stuck in this house and now he doesn't know what to do. And so I'm excited. I think like him being in there has definitely left his like feelings to fester, and he is really feeling a lot of anger towards the world and towards women. And I think he blames like that girl he had a crush on for not reciprocating, because had she reciprocated and gave him the time of day and the attention, then he never would have been forced to act out and kill this young girl, and then he wouldn't be forced to be living under the stairs and dealing with all of this. So he's definitely like, everybody else is the problem except me. And again, like, those feelings are definitely going to fester, and I feel like it's gonna just get wild from here. So my plan is to finish this today. I don't have anything else to do. I'm taking my car for an oil change, but that's in a couple of hours, and I feel like I'll probably bring this so I can read it, because I'm just gonna be like waiting there. Other than that, I have nothing going on, so I should be able to finish this. Hopefully the next time that you see me, I will come back with a final update on this book. So before I get into my review, I did actually learn something. This was traditionally published at first, but I guess when the author passed away, maybe it was before he passed away, the family kind of like took over his books and the publishing of those books. And so that is what Spatterlight Press is that is publishes only his books, and that is run by his family, I guess. So technically not really indie horror because it was traditionally published at first, but I feel like it still qualifies for this video because it's not a very popular book. It's an older book. You don't really see people talking about it. I've never heard of it except for that one random day at the thrift store. Anyways, I did just finish this. I'm between a 3 or a 3.5 star. I actually really enjoyed it. I don't know why. I think I was just like scared because it had been on my TBR for so long, and then it also like I didn't know anybody that had ever read this book, so I didn't know what to expect, and so I just kind of like, not that I went into it with like low expectations, but I just tried not to have like high expectations for it, and I just honestly wasn't sure what to expect, but I did actually end up enjoying this. I am, however, between 3 or 3.5 star. I feel like a bit of the middle was a little bit repetitive, and it is a pretty short book. It's only 173 pages, but I feel like for so much of the middle of the book, we're just following Ronald, like, sneaking out at night and stealing food from this family that moved in, and then going back in and eating his food and like plotting what he's gonna do and all of this. And it got a little bit repetitive because it was kind of just the same thing every day that we were reading about. And then I also feel like the ending was kind of very fast. Like the last few pages felt very rushed. With the conclusion of everything, I just wish that maybe there was like less of that day to day in the middle, and then we had more time with the ending as we get to see like what actually is the outcome of the situation. It also says on the back that it's a mystery novel, and I remember seeing that and being kind of confused because I was like, I thought it was just, you know, kind of a horror. It seems like a straightforward horror, but I can definitely see like the mystery vibes, although it's like not a mystery that we are trying to solve, because obviously we know like what's going on. We know that Ronald is living in this house and that he is a threat to the people that live there, but we are watching other people try to solve the mystery of what is happening to these girls. And I actually thought that was really, really fun to see like each individual person kind of have a theory, and then based off of their theory devise a plan, and how everybody kind of works together to get to where they get to at the end. I feel like I honestly would recommend this. I don't think it's available on Kindle Unlimited. I don't know if you can buy it anywhere. Maybe if you go directly to Spatterlight Press, they might have like ebooks or paperbacks that you could get. I did briefly look up like the original like first edition, or to get this as a hardcover, people are charging hundreds of dollars for that, which is crazy. So maybe this does have some sort of cult following somewhere in the world. I guess I got lucky that I found it at the thrift store. I don't know. I would say like it's definitely disturbing. Like there's disturbing content and themes, but that stuff doesn't happen on page. Like there is no assault that happens on page. There's no murder that happens on page and described in great detail. It kind of is like almost like a fade to black moment when these murders occur. So like it's disturbing themes, but I wouldn't say that it's like extreme horror and very, very graphic at times. But it was an interesting and unique story. I do think you can definitely tell the time period that it was written in, but that's not really a flaw. It's just interesting, I guess. Overall, I am actually glad that I read this. I think tonight I'm just going to read, what is this called? Incorrect Eyes. This is one on my Kindle. It is by, oh my gosh, you literally can't see that. If you can see those like white specks there, that's the author's name. Andromeda Ruins is the author. I don't know what this is about. I think it has something to do with like angels and like the biblically correct version of angels that are just like covered in eyes, but it's 50 pages. And so I love when you open a short story on Kindle and you're on like page 1 and it says I'm 11% through the book. Like it's just such a good feeling. Anyways, I'm thinking that I might read this because it is so short, and we'll see what I think of it. It's 30 minutes later, approximately 30 minutes later, and I have just finished the short story on Kindle, Incorrect Eyes, and it is so cute. This is totally unrelated, but the first line of the acknowledgements is so cute. It says, "Happy birthday, Max. I hope this present helps brighten your day a bit, just like you brighten my day by being my friend." I don't know who Max is, but I think that's adorable. Anyways, the story itself I thought was fine. One thing that I did really like is that each chapter has an image, which is not what I was expecting going into it. And so like getting to the first one was kind of a fun little surprise. So there is one of the images, for example. Anyways, in this short story, we are following, I believe, a nameless main character. and we don't really know too much about him except that he's being plagued by dreams, or maybe what you would call nightmares, of like angels and eyeballs. And he is working, he's gotten a job. Hang on, because they explain it. He was offered a job position to join a specialized team focusing on researching the messengers, which are these angels. And so I believe like what he is doing is he spends a lot of time, like throughout the story, he spends like the whole night in this library and he is reading through like ancient books and like old books that talk about these angels. There's obviously a very, very heavy religious influence with that. I feel like maybe people that have religious trauma from their upbringing might be able to relate to some of the things that are happening in this book. But I think like mainly aside from that, I feel like the big thing is mental health, paranoia, anxiety. There is, I feel like, a good description of a panic attack in here that I did highlight because I wanted to share, because having experienced that myself, I feel like, to sum it up simply, I feel like they did a good job here. It says, I don't want to cry, I just want everything to be done. I want to relax, but I can't. Each breath I take in, a natural process that every person can do properly except for me, makes things worse. They hit shallower and shallower until I'm barely breathing in at all. Hyperventilating would be a better word for it. And I just feel like that is going to be so relatable to so many people. There's also another part where they're talking more about their mental health and this paranoia that they're experiencing, how they are hardly sleeping. When they are sleeping, they're not truly resting. They are running off of a caffeine addiction, not eating very much. And they're referencing a text message that somebody sent them that said, "Are you okay?" And they said, "How does one define okay? Physically, I'm alive. Mentally, I don't know how to answer that. I haven't been able to feel anything other than fear and nausea for months." So again, definitely mental health is a big theme in this story. I feel like it was just fine. I do like the way it ended, but because I feel like we didn't really get to know too much about the main character, what exactly their job was, and like to see more about how long these dream nightmares have been plaguing them, and just, I don't know, a more detailed look. I would have enjoyed a little bit more to really establish that connection with the character and the connection to the story, because I feel like I was just kind of reading this and like that's it. Like, I don't know, I wasn't immersed, I guess you could say. I like the way it ended, but it didn't really have a strong impact because I just didn't feel that connection to it. So this is another one of those that I bought for free during one of the Stuff Your Kindle days, but it is currently available on Kindle Unlimited if you are interested in reading this short story. It's a pretty quick read. And again, I feel like if you know maybe a little bit more about religion or have gone through some sort of religious trauma, then maybe like this would be more impactful for you, but I'm happy to finally have read it. I don't know what I want to start next. I feel like I should do the other physical TBR book, but I might look through what else is on the Kindle and see if any of those are piquing my interest. I do kind of like that everything so far has been like a novella, so I don't know the rest of the ones on the Kindle if those are novellas, but I kind of want to keep that theme going. I think it's fun. So I did decide to go with my other physical TBR book because I don't know how many more books I will read before I want to get this video up. This might honestly be the last one. I don't know. I kind of want to squeeze another one in there if I can. But I figured since like that was the main goal, and one of the reasons why I even started this vlog in the first place was to read those two off of my physical TBR. I thought it made sense to just go ahead and read this, and I'm honestly glad that I chose it because I'm actually really liking this. This is another one that is quite dark and disturbing, so definitely some themes to be aware of with this. So we are following a nameless man, and at the beginning of the book he is about 25 or 26 years old, and he meets this girl at a bar, and he's very much into her, she's into him. You know, things are getting a little bit sexual. They decide to leave the bar together and go somewhere and, you know, get down and dirty. But she ends up passing out on the drive, and when they get there and she kind of wakes up a little bit, she doesn't remember who he is and doesn't remember that she agreed to leave the bar with him and had any sort of encounter with him. And she's like kind of completely a different mood, different tone. She's like, leave me the fuck alone. I don't know who you are. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this with you. And he gets very upset by that and ends up killing her and then doing things to her body, which is disgusting and a little bit difficult to read. It's not like super graphic, but it's definitely like disturbing. So that is like what the story's about, but that's not what the plot is following. We know that he is like, the book is written, they're like journal entries. He is kind of like typing up on his computer, reflecting back on this thing that he did in his life. So that event took place in 1968, and now we are further in the future. We don't know exactly what year it is, but there's even a line in here where he says like, that was in 1968, and since you can tell that I'm sitting here telling the story, you'll know that I got away with it. Obviously, like, DNA and stuff wasn't a thing back then, like testing for DNA and all of the evidence you can gather from crime scenes that, you know, we have nowadays, tests that you can run. That wasn't a thing back then. It was also a lot easier to just like get up and leave and change your identity and just disappear. And so that's what he kind of does. He just leaves. He never gets caught for this murder, and he is just living life, and that's what we are following, is him in the aftermath of this and dealing with, you know, the knowledge and the fact that this is something that he did, and he is constantly thinking about, is it going to happen again? He actually does come up with a plan after this to go to a different bar, pick up a woman, but this time intentionally, you know, get supplies and gets prepared to kill her, and then doesn't end up doing it. They get to talking, and he just kind of pulls the whole, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and then he just leaves. And he can't even pinpoint a reason why or explain like what changed and what made it so that he didn't want to kill that woman. But am I in focus? I think I am. Anyways, he has just kind of like obviously been hiding his whole life and just kind of avoiding people in general, but specifically women, because he doesn't know if this will happen again, and he doesn't really want it to happen again. I don't know, he doesn't want to find out if it's going to happen again. But he eventually does get involved with a woman and fall in love, and then again he's just constantly like, he's scared to be intimate with her at first because he doesn't know if, you know, if something's gonna happen, if he's not gonna be able to control himself like once things start to go there. Even though like he loves this woman, he doesn't know if this is like a uncontrollable tendency that he has, and he knows that he's capable of doing something so horrific, and he just has to like live with that. I don't know, it's really interesting. I actually really like the way that it's written. There have been a few moments that I probably should have underlined or tabbed, but I just didn't, because I didn't have like my annotating supplies with me, and now I'm kind of like, maybe I should just go back so I can underline these things, because there have been moments that I really like. It obviously, like, I feel like there's a lot that you could talk about here, but it's reminding me of In Cold Blood, which obviously this is fictional and that one's like based off of a true crime, but just the way that like that book takes a very humanizing look at those people that committed the crime is kind of the same in here. Like, you are really getting into his mind and seeing him as a person, all the while knowing that like he has committed the worst crime that you can, like taking another person's life. And then even in this case, obviously a little bit more because of what he does with the body afterwards, but then still getting to see him as a person. And then also like some of his musings and some things that he says are like oddly relatable, and you're like, should I really be relating to this character? Like, it feels weird, but that is what I'm liking about it so much, because it's just kind of like that gray area that it's exploring. It's also been a very quick read so far, I think because of the way that it's written, and it's just kind of this guy like telling you a story. It just makes it flow so easily. He also goes off on all of these like side tangents. Like, it took him so many times he would like bring up this woman that he like falls for, but then he goes off on a side tangent and he's like, oh wait, actually I was supposed to be telling you about this, and then he goes off on another side tangent and he's like, okay, anyways, so back to this, and then he goes off on another side tangent, and it just like, but it pulls you in, and to the point where like you're reading it and I didn't even notice that like we were getting off topic until he was like, oh yeah, we were supposed to be talking about this, and I was like, oh, that's right, we were supposed to be talking about that. It just, I don't know, it flows very easily. It's just interesting and fun to follow. I don't know at this point like where we're gonna go with the story. I feel like, you know, we'll probably be following him until his death, because we've just been following his life for now. But I'm also curious to see, like, I know he told us like that he never got caught because he's writing this story and telling us about this crime that he committed, but part of me is like wondering, like, obviously his DNA was in that body, and if they preserved some of that evidence, like, is there a possibility that he will get found and be convicted of this crime? And then what is that going to mean for the new life and the new identity that he's trying to build? I just don't know where it's gonna go, but I am really, really enjoying this so far. So that is your sign. Like, don't judge a book by its cover, because that cover really is not doing much for me, but I'm really, really liking the book. I don't know, I feel like this might be my favorite so far of the video, but we'll see with the second half. We'll see what happens and where things go from here. So I did mention previously that I took my boyfriend to the airport earlier this week. If you're wondering where he is, that's where he is. He's currently in New York. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard is doing 4 concerts there. They did 2 rock shows. Right now is their first rave night, and then they have another rave night tomorrow. I'm so jealous. I was not able to go because I took my 2-week-long vacation to the Netherlands, which of course I loved, and I got to see the babies and everything was great, but I'm so jealous. Like, I wish I was at this rave right now. So I have the live stream on. I'm just gonna sit here and cry and wish that I was there, but also I'm gonna read my book while I've got some techno rave music going on in the background. I feel like I'm watching this with friends. So I did finish my book. Honestly, it was kind of perfectly timed with the like rave show that I was watching. I obviously wasn't reading as quickly as I normally would because I was pausing to watch that at times, but I think that live stream ended when I had about like 20 pages left in the book, so it was kind of perfectly timed that I was able to watch that, get a lot of reading done, and then finish the book last night. This, I think, definitely has been my favorite so far of this video. I think I'm gonna give it a 4-star. I feel like that's like a really good solid rating, and I would recommend this. I think that it's like, it was just so interesting and so thought-provoking. Again, like, the plot is based around like quite a dark and disturbing event, and it does get described and it gets a little bit graphic at times, but seeing where the story goes, it just, I don't know, there's so much that it gives you to think about that I really, really enjoyed. I feel like the ending, I wish it went a little bit further because it does kind of end not quite abruptly, but it leaves it a little bit open. Like, you don't get answers to everything as far as like what is to come of this man's life and if he ever gets caught for this crime. But I liked the way that the story developed. I liked the writing a lot. I think I would definitely check out this author again. I think he has a lot of books out. Yeah, it says he over the past half century has earned multiple Edgar Allan Poe and Seamus Awards, the UK Diamond Dagger for Lifetime Achievement, and recognition in Germany, France, Taiwan, and Japan. So he's got quite a lot of work. As far as this, I think this was published in 2020, and the author's note for this one says that he is currently working on anthologies and then is also writer in residence at South Carolina's Newberry College. So definitely like an accomplished author, but I think all of his stuff is self-published. Like, I think he has published all of his books on his own, and I hope he's getting the recognition because like if this is anything to go off of as far as like how his other things are written, hello, I think this was excellent, and I'm really, really glad. Like, this book that I've never heard of and just happened to receive as an accident, and then it ended up being something that I really, really enjoyed and I probably will think about for some time to come. So again, if you like anything that kind of gets a little bit morally gray and gives you a lot to think about as far as like, I don't know, inside the life of a criminal and inside the mind of somebody that has killed somebody else, I don't know, it also just like makes you think so much about like how probable it is that at some point in your life maybe you've interacted with somebody who has killed another person or committed an assault like this man. And it just, I don't know, I feel like it was just such an interesting book, and I know like I'm getting repetitive, but I would really recommend this if you like that kind of vibe, if you like darker, grittier things, but they also give you an interesting lens to view the world through and give you a lot to think about in your own life. This was great for that. So I think I'm going to read one more book. I think I have time for that as long as we get a novella. So I have the Kindle app on my phone. I just want to look through and see like what possibilities we have. The Third Rule of Time Travel, I don't think is indie published. I just got that. It was on sale for like 99 cents. So I got that. I could do like a David Sodergren or Beta by, what is that author's name? Sammy Scott or something like that. But those are both authors that I've read from before and know that I like. So I want to try something different, like read from an author I've never read from before or read a book that I don't really see anybody ever talking about. So I think I have a couple that have been like free ebooks that I've gotten. So let me see. So I feel like these two could be contenders. We have Smilin Sam's Corn Maze and then Sewer Rat. So I want to look at both of those and see like what they're about and what the page count is. So Sewer Rat, let's see. Ben has been bullied relentlessly since the 3rd grade by his ex-best friend Jimmy Norton, after he spills an important secret that destroys not only each of their families but also their friendship. In an odd twist of fate, Ben finds friendship and comfort in a new and unlikely alley under the silly streets, right. His new friend Henry encourages Ben to stand up for himself. Is his friend a rat? This is an extreme psychological horror story. If you're not familiar with the genre, please note that this is extremely dark and twisted. Oh, it's only 83 pages! If he's friends with a rat, I'm kind of sold on that. Let's see what the Smiling Sam's Corn Maze is about. This one's 88 pages. Oh my god, hello. When her 7-year-old daughter Lizzie disappeared into a corn maze on Halloween night in 1984, Catherine didn't think she'd survive the loss. For nearly 40 years, she has struggled with her grief and guilt, so when her doctor delivers a fatal diagnosis, it's almost a relief. but something is happening to Catherine. Whether a result of her medication or from the disease that's destroying her brain, Catherine is experiencing vivid nightmares that spill over to waking hallucinations of a malicious cartoon scarecrow. Smilin Sam has ripped himself free from the billboard above the maze, claiming he wants to help her. The lines between fantasy and reality blur as Sam becomes increasingly real and violent. Will his cruelty and power over Catherine lead her to do the unthinkable as her mental state deteriorates? So that sounds like another psychological one. There's one more that I want to look at. This one. I don't know why it doesn't have a cover. Crawl Space. This one I know I got as a free ebook when I finished something else. Oh, this one's over 300 pages. Okay, so that eliminates that one. I don't think that there's anything else. I could read both of them because they're both about 80 pages. So combined, that's 160, 170 pages. Maybe I'll start with Sewer Rat. And then if I'm feeling like reading the other one afterwards, I can do that. So we have chosen the next read for this video. Will it be the last one for real this time? I don't know. We'll see. But I need to get back to editing. I'm currently editing this video, and then I can read whatever I'm gonna read. I'm already a little nervous for this because at the beginning there's a little note from the author, and they end it by saying, "I hope that you enjoy this story as much as I enjoyed writing it, but I do hope the ending pisses you off in the best of ways." What does that mean? I'm sitting on the floor so that Lil could grace us with her presence. She's sitting in my reading chair. It's kind of like her hangout spot. I don't know if you can see on camera, but there's a lot of cat hair in that chair. Anyways, I finished Sewer Rat. It took me 40 minutes to read, and it was not very good. I think this is gonna be the first book that I genuinely would not recommend in this video. So we have this kid named Ben, and he is getting bullied at school. One of his biggest bullies is his ex-best friend, and their friendship, okay, we have another member of the channel coming to join. Okay, wow, she yells at me and then doesn't like when I pick her up. Do you want to sit there? Okay, well, you can't really see her. Anyways, their friendship ended because Ben's mom and Jimmy, the bully's dad, supposedly got together and had a little bit of an affair. And then Jimmy's dad left the family and then kind of ruined his whole life, whatever. First of all, I could not stand, Ben calls the bullies the Goon Squad, and he calls them goons. He'll be like, "I'm running towards the goon." I couldn't handle that. But anyways, one day they are following him home, and they're kind of harassing him on his walk home, and he goes into the sewer to escape them, and while he's in the sewer, he meets this rat named Henry, and Henry's talking to him, and he's like, "I can read your mind." And I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? I'm a rodent girl. I love rats. Had my fair share of rats and mice as pets before. Love them so much. So I was excited for this. I was like, ooh, he's gonna have a little rat friend, and his rat friend is gonna help him defeat his bullies. And then it just got so ridiculous, and it's just not very well written. I will give you some quotes to illustrate how this is written. Nothing is ever shown to us, which, okay, it's a short story, I guess. It's only 80 pages. You don't have that much time to give a lot of background, but I've read some short stories that were freaking fantastic where I felt like I really knew the characters. But here are some quotes to give you an idea of what I mean. Nothing is shown to us. This is the first time we meet his father. They have a single conversation, and he goes, "Dad gives me a hug and thanks me for being so forgiving and loving. My dad is such a good man, and I really look up to him." Okay. Again, they're just telling us. He's also kind of setting the scene for at school. He's like, I I'm actually pretty liked by people at my school, even though I get bullied by these people. Even though I am not athletic and I am kind of a nerd, people do like me. I am kind to everyone, always willing to share my meal or help with homework. Like, are you picking up what I'm picking up on? Henry the rat. We're just gonna do, I don't know, this isn't full spoilers, but again, I don't recommend this, so like, whatever. Henry introduces Ben to his rat family living in the sewers, and he says, "These are my family. They don't talk like I do, but as I'm a rat, I can speak to them. Basically, I will be your rat translator, and I will be their human translator." It just, like, I don't know, I can't, it's not well written at all. It's also repetitive, like it's an 80-page story. If you tell me one thing on one page, you don't need to say the same thing 2 pages later, because I do remember that it was brought up. Again, we have Ben talking about Henry the rat. He says, "Henry lets me be myself." And honestly, I love that for me because he reminds me of my dad. He is kind, loving, and supportive. Just sit with that. And then we get into extreme horror as he is taking out his revenge on these bullies and chopping them up in the sewer. And then we get this like ridiculous reveal twist thing at the end that I feel like was obvious. It wasn't good. It was not good. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited though, if you do want to read it. I would not recommend. So we're gonna move on to the next book. I'm not gonna start it right now. I'm gonna make dinner and then take a shower and do some other stuff. I think the cats are just staring at each other. What are you doing? Hello? Anyways, I just kind of cut myself off there. Quite sad that like everything else in this video, I was like, yeah, I would recommend this. This one, no. Hello, I'm sitting on the floor again. This time I am catless, but I did finish the other book, Smilin Sam's Corn Maze, last night. It is now the next day when I'm giving you this update, obviously. Luckily, this one was much better than the last one that I read. I'm so glad I read this at this time because now I can recommend it to you guys for spooky season. I feel like this would be a really good Halloween read because the main plot point is something that takes place on Halloween. So there was a little girl that went missing. Her and her family went to this corn maze and she got abducted by a stranger, and pretty much the police, like they do many times in real life, they had their sights set on one guy and they made the evidence fit that guy and then arrested him. He ended up being killed and that was it. They never got to find the little girl or find her body or anything like that, because if this guy is the one that did it, he's now dead. He has taken that information to the grave. It is 35 years later, and the person we are following in the story is the girl's mother. She is now 71 years old, and she has been diagnosed with a form of dementia that is very, very rapidly progressing. So she did divorce her husband after their daughter went missing, but they're still very, very close, and so she is kind of working up to that conversation that she has to have with her remaining children and with her ex-husband about the condition that she's been diagnosed with. But as she's like getting her affairs in order and like trying to get ready for that conversation, she starts having weird recurring dreams that take her back to the night that her daughter went missing, which I think I mentioned was Halloween night. So just that, first of all, like the descriptions of like Halloween and the corn maze and scarecrows and people in costumes, like perfect spooky season read. So in these dreams, she is being kind of led through this night by this cartoon scarecrow, Smilin Sam, who was on the billboard for the corn maze that they had visited, and he is basically, like I said, guiding her through the night and telling her to pay attention to certain details, like watch this person, and do you see your daughter now? Who's watching your daughter right now? Like, what do you see? Tell me what you see. And through that, she starts to uncover some more information that was overlooked. She speaks with the sheriff, who has since been replaced since that night, and gets the case reopened, and then together they work to solve the mystery and locate her daughter. I would say this definitely leans more mystery than horror. Of course, there are some dark topics when we're talking about child abduction and child murder. Of course, be aware of that. But I really like this. I feel like, again, in the same length as that other one that I read, the sewer rat one, I feel like I actually felt connected to these characters and could really feel for the mother and what she's going through. Like, the grief that you would feel from an incident like that, and then 35 years, you are now diagnosed with dementia and it's starting to progress, and you know, like, this is your last chance to ever get answers and locate your daughter before you kind of just completely lose your mind. So it was kind of an emotional read at times, but overall I really liked it. I feel like the plot was well paced, I liked the writing, and I would recommend this. So it is on Kindle Unlimited. Like I said, add it to your spooky season TBR. It's a very quick read, and I feel like you guys could enjoy it. And with that brings us to the end of the video. So I read 7, I think, indie horror books in this, and I'm able to confidently recommend 6 out of those 7. I didn't say my ratings for the last 2. Sewer Rat is going to be a 2-star for me. Smilin Sam's Corn Maze, I think, I don't know, in between a 3.5 and a 4-star. I feel like it was a really solid read, so maybe I'll just go ahead and give it a 4-star and give that smaller author some love. But overall, I feel like this turned out really well. I feel very accomplished that I read so many books off my Kindle that I've had for years. I think every Kindle book that I read in this was one that I got for the Stuff Your Kindle days in 2024. Except for Shockwaves, I guess that was just one that I had borrowed from Kindle Unlimited, but it's a great feeling to finally have read those and to be able to make content about it and recommend it, and hopefully, you know, you guys will go and pick those books up and support the authors. Let me know down below what your favorite indie horror book is, and with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time.